Well, you're welcome, I guess. There's next Wednesday is the last Spirit in Life of the semester. And there's no hippo until January of next year. What is going on next semester? Exciting stuff. So we're going to be soliciting new debate ideas, I believe. And this is actually cool because this is a cool, like if someone checks into this and they're like, what's going on with the Intellect program, the Intellect department? It's like my State of the Union address. So, I know, right? Next January, we're going to be looking to do probably 2 debates next year, probably one in the fall and spring, which will be exciting. And next January, my Civil War class commences. I hope you'll all join me for that. Like I say a million times over, I definitely consider myself a general specialist of modernity, of like 1500 onward in Europe and America, but the Civil War is my dissertation topic, main thesis thing. So I'm really excited to share that with you. The import of that. I think the only thing that I believe might rival the Great War in importance is the Civil War for us as Americans. Total, like, you know, in the box here, not outside the box. In fact, if you remember when I talked about the Battle of Belleau Wood, one of the captains there, one of the American soldiers says, "Oh, this is," there might have actually even been Pershing himself, the head of the AEF. He says this is the greatest victory in American history since Appomattox, since the Union defeated the Confederacy at the end of the Civil War. All right, so we're going to go back in time, obviously, but yeah. And did I share this with you guys? I think I don't know if I told you my big novel is under contract. Did I tell you guys that? Or no?
You did.
I did tell you that.
We're excited.
Okay. I promised to give all of you guys free copies.
The 2023, you said?
I think so. I don't know. Like so far, with my editor and myself, we're doing this 1950-page sections of revisions because the book is 1,000 pages long. So we divided up to where I look at it again, send him things, he sends back things. I triple confirm, like, okay, this is good. Then he puts it in a typesetter. I've gotten through 8 sections already, almost like a third of the book with the revisions. He sent me back to, I don't know, but you guys, because you attend my class so faithfully, we'll all get copies of the book, and then you'll think like,
we can share.
Was this supposed to be fun? Oh, you guys can share. I'll do one for the Schmidt family. But you guys will think, oh, is this supposed to be a reward? This is a punishment. So and like you can use it for firewood. Or like
does the editor, do they need blurbs? Yeah, because
it would be hilarious. Could I actually be awesome to solicit you for like how fun? Okay, no, yeah, he's like the process is after all this gets put together and the revisions, they need to solicit support for the book. It would be awesome to get like all these like super big name people, whatever, and then have you in there where it's like
and
I know this sounds like, oh yeah, that you like this like I think you're cooler than all those people. The awesome thing would be that in my love for the Palouse, like this guy is the king of the Palouse. So like in my mind, that's the joke. People think, oh, who's Dave Schmidt? Who the bleep is that guy? Oh, I know like this guy, I know this guy, whatever. And I'm like, Dave Schmidt, they should be honored to be in the book with him. He's the main.
And why is it called Up Dog?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's all he said. Up
yeah,
dog.
Exactly. Yeah.
We had an Up Dog moment earlier.
You know that joke? You know,
Yeah.
Everyone's heard that joke, what, a trillion times? Okay.
It's like my dad's favorite joke. Ever since I taught it to him, he's like, I gotta use that.
I gotta use it. I gotta do it. What is Up Dog? I think I asked someone once.
I didn't get that at all, Dan.
But she was like a formal person, like a formal older lady, English professor type person, like very like, you know, what perchance is Up Dog? Like,
That doesn't work.
say, what's Up Dog? What is the etymological meaning of Up Dog? It's not the question I'm asking you. Just think, what's up, dog? Nothing, dog. Okay.
All right.
Let's get started. I'll wait for Trish Schmidt to return, and I'll begin. Short class. I think we'll probably be done by 9:15. Just have what we're talking about today. If you want to know the topic again, Woodrow Wilson, comma, and the conference of Versailles. So we're just talking about the settlement that ends the war. We've hinted at a lot of this stuff over and over and over again throughout the semester. Here's where we bring it full circle. Trish, all you missed was the topic of today's class, which is Woodrow Wilson and Versailles. You missed it. Bio of Wilson. What's a recap of bio really quick of Wilson? He was born in 1856 in Georgia. Remember, he remembers seeing General Grant during the Savannah campaign, the March to the Sea, General Sherman come through his town. So he's a child of the Civil War, a Southerner. He has a meteoric rise. Remember, I said, imagine if the Idaho president, I kid you not, if the Idaho president in the next election cycle, if it was staggered, first became governor of Idaho, like next year, some special snap election, became governor. And what is the gubernatorial election next year? As little as 2018, you know, what's the next Idaho gubernatorial race? Is it 2022 or 2024? It might be
I'm
2022.
guessing, well, I was gonna say 24, but I'm guessing.
Okay, do you guys know?
I don't
I
If
think
it's
I think it's
2022,
22. I think it's maybe 2022.
wouldn't we be hearing about that, especially with the lieutenant governor
They
and the
are, no,
governor?
they already
you know?
are. Look, someone look that up. Someone look that up. I think it's 2022. I really do.
Look it up.
Wait, when you're looking at that, imagine this. If the Idaho president of University of Idaho became governor of Idaho in 2022 and was president in 24 of the United States, that's what happens to Woodrow Wilson. He goes from being the president of Princeton University to the governor of New Jersey, the following year being the president. Any confirmation date on that? I think it's 2022 because they've been talking about already endorsements and stuff.
I'm working on it. Oh, Idaho, Idaho elections 2022. Yeah. 2022, Idaho gubernatorial.
Yeah, yeah. 'Cause
Election.
the governors,
Oh, look, they've already got a winner.
they're weirdly staggered. And like Washington was 2020, like it's somehow,
And the governor term is how long?
4 years.
4?
Yeah.
Is it the Senate that's 6?
Senate is 6, House of Representatives 2.
This is crazy.
And that's why I think the governor things are, because there's an election every 2 years for the House. So sometimes governors, sometimes senators are up, sometimes president. So now actually you're perfect. The president of Idaho now, the University of Idaho becomes governor, next thing, president of the US in 2024. That'd be crazy. That is Woodrow Wilson. Wilson travels to Europe, first point, to lead the American delegation of the Paris Peace Conference. Remember, before this, right? He won re-election in 1916. He kept us out of the war. And then all of a sudden, oh, wait, well, did he really keep us out of the war? He's kind of funding the Allies, funding Britain as the financial capital of the world moves from London to New York City. Wilson travels to Europe to lead the American delegation there, becoming the first US president to travel to Europe while in office. Okay. Save for a 2-week return to the US, Wilson remains in Europe for 6 months, where he focuses on reaching a peace treaty to form the end of the war. Wilson is one of the big 4. Okay, Wilson is one of the big 4, along with British Prime Minister David Lloyd George, French Prime Minister Georges Clemenceau, and Italian Prime Minister Vittorio Orlando. Now, Orlando, I would argue there's a triple staggering here. The highest number, people say, oh, there's 5 powers: US, Italy, Great Britain, France, and Japan. Sorry, Japan. Japan really gets left out in the cold often. Japan actually wants a racial equality cause put in this, and the British people are like, no. Like, we have this empire, and we lord over the Indian subcontinent, a lot of people, what we call today people of color. If we have a racial equality clause in there, they're gonna be like, well, why are we ruled by you, right? Rightfully so. So Japan really doesn't have as much influence to be called one of the 5. Neither does Italy. Big 4, it's really the big 3. It really is Clemenceau, Lloyd George, and Wilson. Come on.
I was surprised Russian.
Oh,
no. I mean, I know they.
Russia's completely black sheep at this point with the Bolshevik Revolution. Even though a lot of people in America are supporting them, and vice versa, Russia's a complete, for lack of a better word, cluster, expletive deleted show. Fill in your favorite, whatever kind of.
I'm offended by these words. I don't want to say it.
I don't want to say them. I know where you're going, but they're very offensive. Russia's just a total disaster at this point. It's entering its own civil war. It's actually very sad. I am a deep, deep lover of humor, as you know, and flippancy and nonsense rabbit holes. This is actually, let me take a step back and rephrase it, right? It's very sad what's going on in Russia, obviously. Lenin's about to come in and just really commit genocide against their own people. They're not going to be involved in the treaty process. They, in fact, remember, totally bagged out of the war when Trotsky and Lenin finally come to an agreement to, okay, fine, sign the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. That was our lecture, I think our penultimate lecture before Thanksgiving break, remember? And Germany wins all that territory, all those territorial concessions in the East. They become nullified immediately because of Armistice Day, the failure of Michael, the Spring Offensive, and Versailles. Wilson has an illness during the conference. Some experts believe could have been. Yeah, could have been, maybe, we don't know.
Oh,
But this is raging throughout the world. Our lecture tomorrow, as we're gonna do tomorrow, which I'm really excited about. I love spending time with you guys. It's robbing Peter to pay Paul though. Getting to spend time with you guys tomorrow until I won't get to see you guys next week or until January. So joke's on me. But tomorrow I'll talk about tomorrow's lecture. Like I said again, it's really for anyone listening on the Zoom stream. I'm gonna put that in the flock note tonight. Tomorrow's lecture is all Spanish war. It's all Spanish war, Spanish flu. It's all focused on that, and then the little addendum, the double addendum at the end, the interwar period, and just as important, the Dave Schmidt movie. So both are. Dave Schmidt movie actually directly influenced by the Spanish flu. So,
but now that'll be published online, and I'm not
It's
sure
not gonna be
I've given
published,
you permission for that.
it will not be published online. So I didn't even ask for permission. No, at that point, the live stream will be shut off. Watch it. Did you notice, is Jordan Westerkamp online? People on the Zoom are like, who's Jordan Westerkamp? Well, look at the blank screen and eat your hearts out. You don't know who he is. You don't know my boy Air German. Oh, Jordan, oh, I got it. You know what I'm talking about. It's not gonna be online tomorrow.
I
Yeah.
have a question. Where China fall at this point? I mean, it seems like they're not involved in the war. I mean, I don't remember hearing. much
Right,
about
so
it.
China, that's an amazing question, really.
It is.
Great question. China, remember, went through its Boxer Rebellion. This is one of the earlier things we talked about. I think it was third class. China was very angry at kind of like what they called imperialistic and Western influence. They had this big national movement. China goes through a lot of turmoil, establishes, I believe, its own republic in 1912, perhaps. Don't quote me on this exactly. But China is kind of hanging out on the periphery of this middle ground in between being basically a vassal for imperial ambitions, the whole open door policy that we in the West can go to China and just take their stuff, trade with them as we see fit, whatever, establish this unidirectional almost trade route system and exploit their resources, blah, blah, blah. To finally the Great Revolution following the Second World War and the establishment of the Communist Chinese Party in 1949. Between Mao Zedong's rise to power in 49 and the Great War, China's in this kind of coming into being thing of like leaving the yoke of the West to kind of finding its own footing. And then China has a very, very horrible experience during the Second World War, especially with the Japanese. The Sino-Japanese War, a lot of atrocities, a lot of awful stuff. Out of that is bred kind of modern China. So at this point, not a key player at Versailles or in the First World War. Unlike other Allied leaders, Wilson does not seek territorial gains. He wants to establish the League of Nations. Okay, very simple. Wilson equals League of Nations. Wilson wants to have a League of Nations, an all for one, one for all, three musketeers, collective security, make the world safe for democracy. Is that not what he said? Remember his address to Congress, make the world safe for democracy. He sees this as the keystone of the whole program. Wilson also believes that self-determination should be the primary basis for drawing up new international orders. And here's the question: does Wilson unintentionally set off the chaos of the 20th century? When all those Balkan states are under the rule of who? Before the First World War, who are the Balkans owned by, basically? Don't say the Ottomans. The Ottomans are already slipping away from the seat. Remember the Balkan Wars. Who are the Balkans under the control of often, in a general sense? The Habsburgs, right? Vienna. When the Ottomans control them, okay, yeah, everyone has to speak German and oh, big bad Vienna. Well, there's some kind of pacification there. They're all part of this larger empire. But what happens when Serbia and Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina are like, we want our own stuff? Maybe you get the atrocities you see in the 1990s, the Yugoslav Wars, right? Those awful things. Once more, how World War I influences all of our modern day stuff up to the present day. Wilson, that sounds like a nice idea, man. Oh, self-determination. Oh, Sophia, who's the governor of Idaho, said Idaho should be its own state. That's a cool thing. I respect that, really. But is that a good idea? Well, then I'm going to be like, I'm the governor of Arkansas. Fine, Arkansas is going to do that too. And then Texas and the whole thing's going to fall apart. Wilson, people that critique him, look at him as a gross idealist. And you can even like write that down for me. Like a gross is in like an over the top, like worse, just saccharine, way too idealistic. Make the world safe for democracy. Open treaties, everyone's a friend, self-determination. That's not how the world works. Advocates of realpolitik would say, okay? And the most sharp critics of Wilsonian policy, as it's known. What is Wilsonianism? Again, collective security, NATO, the UN, League of Nations. League of Nations is his, but even the UN and NATO and these later on things in World War II, which he's already dead for a long time, are Wilsonian heritages. If you believe the world should be made safe for democracy, if you believe we should intervene wherever we see fit to help people, give them American values, that is Wilsonianism. Recently, the whole war in Syria, Bashar al-Assad, you have to remove him, he's a dictator, give the Syrian people democracy, support democracy. That is all code for Wilsonianism. That is Wilsonianism 100 years on now. And critics say every time you do this, it's like breaking a bunch of stuff and bull in a China shop, and then we leave and look, we have like the situation in Iraq or Afghanistan. The proponents of Wilsonianism say those are sacred values, democracy, everyone should have that, and so it's worth whatever suffering, because democracy is almost like a holy concept. It becomes this kind of like pseudo-religious crusader, ideal. The critics of Wilsonianism say it's always idealistic and nothing hurts people as much as idealism. Oh, we'll just go in and tell everyone in Afghanistan they should act like Americans. They're not Americans. You're gonna do more harm than good, critics say. All of this is here at the League of Nations. Wilson, though, for his, I guess you could say maybe rightfully so, he wins a Nobel Peace Prize in 1919. Remember, Theodore Roosevelt was the first American to win the Nobel Prize in 1905 for mediating the end of the Russo-Japanese War. I could say I really like Wilson. I detest Wilson. However I feel about Wilson, okay, this League of Nations concept, unique in world history, that kind of is begging for the prize. That makes sense. And whatever stock you put in prices, that's your business, whether you think that's important or not. But Germany signs the treaty on June 28, 1919. That really matters. The same way that Adolf Hitler makes the French sign, I think the surrender treaty in the Second World War in the same place where Versailles was signed, as like a look, this is payback for World War I. Making the Germans sign the treaty on June 28th is to harken back that 5 years ago to the day Franz Ferdinand, Sophie, and unfortunately their unborn child are gunned down in Sarajevo. That this is like putting a perfect bookmark exactly 5 years ago, right? June 28th. Okay, those are some initial thoughts. The Treaty of Versailles results in 5 treaties, my friends. The Paris Peace Conference, you can say, results in 5 treaties. The reason why the Treaty of Versailles and the Paris Peace Conference are seen as synonymous is that is the first and most important treaty, the Treaty of Versailles, signed on June 28, 1919. It's the first and most important result of the Paris Peace Conference. The other 4 treaties are the Treaty of Saint-Germain, September 10th of 19, the Treaty of Neuilly on November 27th, the Treaty of Trianon on June 4th, 1920. It goes all the way up to the Treaty of Sevres, Treaty of Lausanne, the second one in 1923. So it's interesting that you can say Paris Peace Conference, Treaty of Versailles, same thing, arose by any other name because it's one and the same, fine. But technically speaking, the Treaty of Versailles is the first of the 5 things that compose this whole peace conference up until 1923. Students of history, people who are really bright in this area, will be like, wow, that's very interesting. So the Paris Peace Conference is still, in a certain sense, the treaties thereof going into 1923. 1923 is the year Hitler does his Munich beer hall push. So it seems they're still doing the World War I stuff when a new era is already kind of threatening to come into being. 1922 is when Mussolini's taking power in Italy. It seems like that's we're moving away from World War I. And 1922 is the Treaty of Rapallo, the defense mutual alliance between Germany and Russia. So it seems like the Paris Peace Treaty didn't get the message that era is already over. It's still kind of formulating more stuff. And already Hitler, has failed to come to power, thankfully, but he's pushing for power. Mussolini is in power, and Germany and Russia have signed a defense treaty. It's like the world doesn't wait for anyone. Time waits for no man, kind of thing. The most contentious thing, before I say that, the conference involves diplomats from 32 countries and nationalities. Its major decision, right, of course, is the League of Nations. Sorry for being repetitive, but this lecture is going to be very short today and very brief because it's very much on point with this. It's bringing to term the First World War, and the League of Nations is the main thing that comes out of it. It awards German and Ottoman overseas possessions to who, chiefly? Who gets German and Ottoman stuff, their territories? Britain and France, people that want to have their empire, the people that oppose the racial equality clause, because if they support that, it's kind of hypocritical to be in charge of these people, right? If you're saying that they're equal to you. And it imposes reparations upon Germany, the most scandalous, people say, or the most provocative point of the whole Treaty of Versailles is something called Article 231. Okay, please note that. If you remember anything today, remember, Woodrow Wilson, idealism, League of Nations, and this. Article 231 of the Treaty of Versailles placed the whole guilt for the war on, quote, the aggression of Germany and her allies. That is the thing that historians later on will say lost the peace. That is the thing that enabled Adolf Hitler to come to power and weaponize, like, look at everyone who's against us, this Carthaginian peace, which, by the way, let me note, in many ways, Wilson was not a huge supporter of. Wilson, here's a shameless promotion for my class in the spring, kind of wanted to be like Abraham Lincoln. At this point is already dead. He was assassinated in April of 1865. But his successor, Johnson, and kind of the whole way the American government deals with the Confederates, they don't execute all of them. They don't have this war tribunal, Nuremberg trial, and execute Robert E. Lee and other people as traitors. A lot of people say, oh, well, that was very lenient. And well, maybe because of that, there is no second Civil War 20 years later. There's this kind of reconciliation. Lincoln famously says, right, with malice towards none, charity towards all. The war ended, we in the North won. Thank God slavery is over. A new, more equal America, that's enough. This is not what World War I does. A lot of people want this magnanimous, just peace. They're like, freaking punish Germany. Grind Germany in the ground, Carthago Delinda-esque style, when Rome burns Carthage, salt the earth. Is it surprising the Germans are gonna be pissed later on, right? Article 231, maybe more than anything else, saying the whole guilt for the war is on Germany or allies. Maybe it is more to facilitate the Second World War than anything else. And in fact, all of you now, if not experts of the First World War, and I wouldn't myself, I would not count myself as an expert of the First World War at all, by any means. But all of us have gone through this class. I think all of us can agree that's ridiculous, that Germany was totally to blame. Oh, really? You mean like France, like a dog in front of pizza for Alsace-Lorraine, the kind of breathless thing, Germany, England refusing to let Germany have any ships, 2-1 advantage. The Russian involvement in the Balkans. And I'm sorry, yeah, you're right. Franz Ferdinand hired someone who's Austrian to kill him, right? As a false flag. Oh, wait, no, it was the other guys. It was Serbians. The Serbians started the war, but it's all the Germany's fault. It's such a bunch of BS. And indeed, there is nothing that causes greater humiliation and resentment in Germany than this Article 231, which sadly, when Hitler finally comes to power in the 30s, it's just easy fodder. It's the most low-hanging fruit to be weaponized. And look, everyone hates us. Everyone is so bad to us. Everyone wants to, destroy Germany no matter the cost. So we have to do it to them first. What are the British and French approach to the peace treaty? Okay, listen to this, guys. The British have 4 goals. Ready? 4 goals when they sit down to the peace treaty. 1, ensure the security of France. 2, remove the threat of the German high seas fleet. 3, settle territorial questions. 4, support the League of Nations. Okay. I'd say the thing they're most interested in is removing the threat of the German high seas fleet. They really hate Germany. They said they could never tolerate a foreign power in Belgium. It's like a gun being pointed across the English Channel. And that's in fact, well, I'll talk about what Germany loses in this war. You might be shocked to hear it's, well, or not, it's everything.
And their support of France, I imagine, is largely motivated by proximity of France too.
Not largely, completely.
Completely.
Exactly. Yeah, right. We hate the French too. French are a joke.
That's what I was wondering.
Take my pick. Who do we hate more, the French or the Germans? Is there a C, both option? Like, it's totally just simply because we don't want the Germans having designs on France. France is our ally, and I don't be scared. They are their ally, but we hate the French, but they're the enemy of our enemy, whatever, and my friend. It's all that. French approach, unfortunately, controlled by Clemenceau, one of the big 4 guys. His chief goal is simply to weaken and destroy Germany. Clemenceau is Article 231B guy. Make Germany completely impotent, destroy them strategically, militarily, also economically. Just destroy Germany. To be fair to Clemenceau, he had witnessed 2 German attacks in the last 40 years on French soil. Franco-Prussian War, 1871, remember the crushing defeat, and almost a repeat of that, if not for Joffre in the Battle of the Marne in September of 1914. So to be fair, right, if he's like, all the Germans do is get super strong and amazing, they're so smart and they have great tech and they attack you, he's not wrong, right? Wilson he's very angry at Wilson about his 14 points. He says that he, as a joke kind of, but God himself only has 10 points, right? 10 commandments. Why does Wilson have 14? Wilson's this arrogant, blah, 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 fill in the blank, SOB American guy who can just dictate to the world, which thankfully that's not a stereotype anymore about the world, about Americans. They're arrogant, they tell them what to do. Oh wait, Wilson, I guess invents this template too. The American approach, I already talked about it before. Talked about British approach, talked about the French. American, why am I not going to talk about the Italian approach? Well, I'll let you figure that out because Italy's irrelevant. I'm sorry. I guess we'll talk about the Zimbabwe and the Madagascar and the Argentinian approach too, right? As long as we're talking about Italy. All apologies to every country at this time. Really, there's 3 countries that matter as far as and Germany's not one of them either. Germany's being talked to, dictated to. They're not being asked. They're just being told what to do. America is number 1. This is where we see the complete transition of power that we talked about. The ultimate maybe thing the Great War does for the 20th century is it creates the American behemoth, which of course we take it to a new level and reconfirm and just through the roof with the Second World War and the subsequent Cold War, sure. But America first is like top dog in the world, is first here at Versailles. Wilson attempts to gain acceptance of his 14 points despite Clemenceau and their kind of anger at this, but it fails. France and Britain refuses to adopt some of these core principles. What's a big one? Well, you're gonna be shocked to hear this. There's a lot of competing anger at the conference between Zionists and Arabs. Go figure. Again, this problem's gone away today too, not, right? Zionists, people who want to have a state of Israel established, right? And Arabs who are like, no, we don't want, we want any kind of Israeli government there. The same Israeli versus Palestinian conflict around right now. In the Middle East, these negotiations are complicated. This 14 points self-determination by new mandate system, right? The new mandate system that says, hey, remember the former lands of the Ottoman Empire, especially? We're giving that to Britain and France now. Wilson says in his 14 points, those people should be able to decide for themselves. And Britain and France say, no, thank you. We'll decide for them. We're glad we won the war. Germany's the big bad wolf, Brothers Grimm fairy tale, Hansel and Gretel, bad guys. But just because we're like them, I don't want you to notice that. Just because we're just as capricious and lustful for territory, it's good when we do it though. You shouldn't do it. We can do it though. I want you to wear a mask, just not me. It's different. I know it's different by virtue of being the same. I know you don't get it yet. It's fine. All right. Let me read you the 14 points again in brief summation. What were these contentious points, right? Number 1 was open covenants of peace, right? Open diplomacy, not secret stuff. 2 is freedom of navigation upon the seas. 3, removal so far as possible of all economic barriers, establishment of equality of trade. It's like the New World Order, one world government stuff, right? Everyone same digital cryptocurrency bank stuff. 4, adequate guarantees given and taken that national armaments will be reduced to the lowest point consistent with national defense. I want you to be able to defend yourself, but just, we see a lot of the vestiges of this, like the kind of missile defense treaties of Gorbachev and Reagan in the 80s and that. You guys can keep your nuclear bombs, just the lowest number possible. Everyone back away from the button. 5, a free, open-minded, impartial adjustment of all colonial claims. Britain and France both go like buzzer sound, like that. Yeah, no, we're not going to have Wilson adjust our colonial claims. We'll adjust them by taking them. That's the adjustment is over, right? 6, evacuation of all Russian territory from the Germans. 7, Belgium must be evacuated and restored. Great. 8, wow, here's a big bone from the French. All French territory should be freed. And the wrong done to the French by 1871 in the matter of Alsace-Lorraine should be restored. 9, adjusting the frontiers of Italy along the lines of nationality. That's a double middle finger to Austria-Hungary. Basically, Italy, you can take what you want from the Austro-Hungarians. And bless them for Karl, who's in exile now, Zita, right, Madeira. 10, people of Austria-Hungary should be accorded the freest opportunity to autonomous development. What a bunch of bullcrap. This is, again, you need to wear a mask, I don't. So I want to own Palestine. I, Britain, want to own Palestine. They shouldn't have a right. The Arab people there, whoever, the Arabs, the Zionists, everyone, they shouldn't have a say. I'll determine who owns Palestine. They should have no autonomy. But Austria-Hungary, they're our enemy, we hate those people, they should determine themselves. We want their people. It's the same thing. Like, depending upon, do people support us or not? Oh, they're the same people. I know, but they're against us, they're terrorists. They're for us, they're freedom fighters. It's the exact same thing, right? We want democracy in the world, yeah, for people that we want to give democracy to, not everyone. Ho Chi Minh, the famous communist leader in Vietnam, loves Wilson's ideas, tries to approach Wilson at Versailles and says, oh, self-determination.
And Wilson literally says, yeah, but I don't mean for you. I mean, like for European people, like you're going to be a part of the colonial empire of the French, like go away, dude. So this is, no one should be shocked, like the duplicity and the kind of underhandedness of politicians. This is the definition of being a politician, right? So I don't even mean to criticize Wilson too much, but it's like, please say anything. Oh, Wilson just sold for democracy, whatever. Yeah, for him and his friends, right? It's like when celebrities go to the gala and all the people working have to wear masks. They have no masks. Again, that same idea, right? Well, some people have to wear masks. The virus knows how much money you have. If you're a millionaire, it can't infect you. If you're really important, you can't get COVID. You know, it knows. Trust me. But if you're like a worker, you can get like double COVID. You get really sick, so you have to wear 3 masks.
So I have a question. So what were you saying that Italy gets some land
A
from?
readjustment of the frontiers of Italy should be effected along clearly recognizable lines of nationality. So there are Italian-speaking people living in Austria-Hungary. The Hungarians busted up Karl. I mean, he's already left the throne, but that's our land. That's part of our empire. And so they're going to give the land to Italy because, oh, there's Italians there. It'd be kind of like, imagine if there's a large Spanish-speaking population in Idaho. Imagine there's a city in Idaho where 70% of people spoke Spanish. They're of Mexican heritage. It'd be like the UN saying, well, that's going to go to Mexico. On some lines of nationality. 70% of this town is Spanish-speaking dominant. That's not part of Mexico. It's the autonomous, and people are like, what the heck? Like that's what's going on. Independent Polish state, point number 13, different claims in the Balkans, and finally 14 is that association of nations. A general association of nations which formed under specific covenants for the purpose of affording mutual guarantees of political independence, territorial integrity to great and small states alike. Now, again, going back to the French and German claims, French and British claims, I will say again, I think the French were really stupid in kind of bungling this up and placing all the guilt on Germany. But to be fair to them, fair point number 1, Clemenceau had seen them be attacked twice. Point number 2, France had lost 1.3 million soldiers, including 25% of French men aged 18 to 30, as well as 400,000 civilians during the war. So France, 1/4 of its like young men coming into age generation, people are going to be married, have families. I mean, that 25%, 1.3 million soldiers, maybe really signifies the loss of 10 million people with the families that they never had and all that kind of stuff, right? So that you understand why France wants a punitive peace. But when they want the iron ore of the coal in the Saar Valley annexed to France and the Rhineland and all this kind of stuff, again, this is fodder for Adolf Hitler later on when he comes in and takes the Saarland and remilitarizes the Rhineland in the 1930s. Oh, forget about this, right? You're like, what is he talking about? I'll talk about this tomorrow at the end. This is in the interwar period. But just know that basically Hitler has two things that he uses to rise to power. Everyone knows his awful anti-Semitism and blaming the Jews, but he also blames Versailles. Hitler's 2 main kind of things that get him into power is blaming the Jews and blaming the Versailles Treaty. As like, those are the things that quote unquote, we've all heard the establishment in the back, blah, blah, blah. And so the French are not helping here by just taking all German stuff, trying to make them totally impotent. It's easy pickings for any leader to say, oh, see, they really hate our guts. They're not being fair. The war was kind of everyone's fault. It got out of hand. An assassination happened by not German people. And so it's easy fodder later when having done this class, you understand how we fell in the Second World War, I think, very simply. Another big cause of the Second World War, my friends, is that America never joins the League of Nations, right? I'm going to conclude here on 2 points. Europe accepts the League of Nations, but there was this group in the American Senate called the Irreconcilables, all right, led by Republican Senator Henry Cabot Lodge, and who? Let me read to you his basic bio. You can just find it online. William Edgar Bora was an outspoken Republican United States Senator, one of the best known figures in Idaho history. A progressive who served from 1907 until his death in 1940 is considered an isolationist because he led the Irreconcilables, senators who would not accept the Treaty of Versailles, Senate ratification of which would have made the US a part of the League of Nations. What Bora and Henry Cabot Lodge, let's talk about Bora, because Bora is Idaho. Idaho is so sick-witted. Just stay on that potato state, gem state. Bora is the freaking gem of the gem state, dog, homie, bro, right? So Bora says, I hear what Woodrow Wilson is saying, that the League of Nations is all for one, one for all. That sounds nice in his fairyland utopianism. I'm a freaking Idahoan. Like I eat barbed wire. I'm that pragmatic. If my cow is trying to leave the pasture, I'll eat barbed wire to put it back into place with my teeth. All right. I eat potatoes raw out of the ground. Dave Schmidt doesn't understand. He's not Idaho enough.
No.
Idahoans are all about the bread and butter essentials of daily life. If that means eating barbed wire, they do that. Okay. And
I've never heard that expression.
good. It's my dream to make up expressions that will become like, you never can step in a river twice. If you're not willing to eat barbed wire for your country, you're not a patriot. That's the one I want to make up today. Make that go viral. Bora says, okay, this sounds great. That sounds like a nightmare. Being serious for a second, right? In Idaho, we are isolationists by nature. We're in this beautiful, pristine state in the middle of nowhere, and we like it that way. The last thing I want to do as Bora, as a senator, is have to tell Idaho families, oh yeah, I have to send your son to go fight some pointless war in the Balkans, because that's what the league will say you have to do. If anyone attacks one member of the League of Nations, everyone is bound to send troops. No, thank you. We're not going to be putting out little fires here and there across the world, sorry. So it's never ratified, and it actually kills Wilson. Wilson goes on a speaking tour. He barnstorms for public support. God bless him, God have mercy on him. He suffers a stroke in October of 1919. The exacerbation of his health problems, trying to go across America by train, convincing people, please support this. But he's speaking to the wrong people. This isn't a Democratic vote. It's almost a kind of bad political move. Why are you telling the people in Meridian, Idaho, and North Platte, Nebraska to support this? Who cares what they think? Sorry. Like, they don't have a vote. It's not a national vote. Maybe he's trying to get them to badger their senators. I don't know. But nonetheless, America never joins the league. Looking ahead to tomorrow's lecture, the conclusion of the class, that is one of the ultimate failures in the work period, that America, which drew up this plan, never joins it. So last point, what you're all waiting for. We've all heard, I think this is a very clean, easy to understand lecture, despite the absolute nonsense of my stupid barbed wire quote, which Dave Schmidt, he's right, it makes no sense whatsoever. I think you understand, though, all the stuff that was done here at Versailles, right? The League of Nations #1, 14 points, which a lot are not accepted because of colonial claims. And of course, Article 231B is that punitive peace. I want to conclude the class reading to you what happened to Germany, so you understand why they get so angry. And before I read this to you, please remember that they have no say in this. Trish Schmidt is a delegate from Germany. They're just telling her, please sit in the corner quietly, just listen what we're going to do to your country. There's no dialogue. The treaty strips Germany of 25,000 square miles of territory and 7 million people. It requires it to give up the gains of the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk and grant independence to protectorates that have been established. Germany is required to evacuate and recognize Belgian sovereignty. Okay. Compensate for the destruction of French coal mines. Germany has to cede the output of the Saar coal mines and control of the Saar. That's that land that Germany will go back into in the 30s for 15 years. And then a plebiscite would determine sovereignty later in vote. The treaty restores Alsace-Lorraine, if you've heard it a million times already, right? In Central Europe, Germany has to recognize parts of Upper Czechoslovakia and cede parts of the province of Upper Silesia. Germany had to recognize the independence of Poland, point number 13, and quote, renounce all rights and title over the country, evacuate everything from what it had in Eastern Europe from the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, and finally cede the city of Danzig, or as a Pole would call it, Gdańsk, the city on the Baltic Sea, establish the free city of Danzig. So basically the Treaty of Versailles, Germany has to pay for everything, lose all of its territory. And that's fair, because Germany, they're the bad guys, right? Even if you, I don't take that view. I think it's very unfair and stupid. I think everyone was kind of the bad guy in World War I. It was a total disaster of a war. The Germans are not more to blame than the French or the British. Everyone kind of fell into this. Even if you take that simplistic view, Germany equals bad guy always, punish the Germans. This is really unfair. There is no dialogue here. They're just planting a ticking time bomb. Hey, let's take all of your stuff, mock you, and see if it pisses you off later. It probably won't. When you lose all your territory, lose everything, you're probably not asking for someone to come along and say, hey, maybe let's change this game. I will see you all tomorrow. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.